Park was not a hero. He knew this about himself and had made peace with it long ago. He was a medic on the exploration ship called Horizon's Edge, and his job was simple. He fixed broken bones. He treated fevers. He held the hands of scared crew members when they needed comfort. That was enough for him. On the night everything changed, was in the medical bay humming an old song. A crew member named had twisted her ankle during training, and he was wrapping it with careful hands. The song was something his mother used to sing to him when he was small. He did not remember all the words anymore, but the melody lived in his chest like a second heartbeat. "You always hum when you work," said with a small smile. "It helps me focus," replied. "My mother used to say that music heals faster than medicine." Before could respond, the ship shook violently. The lights turned red. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Grabbed the edge of the medical table to keep himself from falling. "What was that?" whispered. Did not answer. He did not know. The next few minutes were chaos. The ship shook again and again. Crew members ran past the medical bay, their faces full of terror. Someone was shouting about an attack. Someone else was crying, helped to her feet and moved toward the door. That was when he saw them. They were tall, so tall that had to tilt his head back to see their faces. Their bodies were covered in armor that looked like shells, and the shells changed color as they moved, blue to purple to green, like oil floating on water. Their eyes were large and dark, and they reflected no light at all. One of them grabbed by the arm. Its grip was like iron, tried to pull away, but it was useless. The creature was too strong. It dragged him down the corridor while others separated the crew into groups. Saw Captain being pushed to the left with the other officers. He saw being taken to the right with the civilians. He tried to call out to them, but no sound came from his throat. They pulled him through a door that had not existed before. The walls on the other side were not metal. They were alive. Could see them breathing. Veins of light pulsed through the tissue like blood through a body. The air smelled strange, sweet and sharp at the same time. He was inside the alien ship. They walked for what felt like hours. His legs grew tired, but they did not slow down. Finally, they stopped before a massive door. It was made of the same living material as the walls, and it opened slowly like a mouth. They pushed inside. The chamber was enormous, had never seen a room so large. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above him. The floor was smooth and warm under his feet, and at the far end of the chamber there was a throne. The throne was made of crystal, or bone, or something in between. It glowed with soft light, and upon it sat the most terrifying creature had ever seen. She was beautiful. She was horrible. She was both at the same time, and his brain could not decide which one to believe. The queen of the was shaped like a woman, but wrong in ways that made his eyes hurt. Her limbs had too many joints. Her fingers were too long. A crown of living tendrils grew from her head, and they moved on their own, reaching toward him like curious snakes. But it was not the queen that made his heart stop. It was the sound. A thin, high wail filled the chamber. It was the cry of something small and helpless, something in pain. Knew that sound. He had heard it in hospitals, in orphanages, in the dark nights of his childhood. It was the cry of a baby. The queen held a bundle in her arms. The bundle was wrapped in cloth that shimmered like starlight, and from inside the bundle came that terrible, heartbreaking cry. "Human," the queen spoke. Flinched. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. It vibrated through his bones and made his teeth ache. He realized with shock that he could understand her. Something had been put inside his head, a translator of some kind. "Human," the queen said again, "come forward." His legs moved without his permission. He walked across the chamber until he stood before the throne, close enough to see the tears running down the queen's alien face, close enough to hear the desperate edge in her voice. "My child suffers," she said. "It has been crying for many cycles. Our doctors cannot help. Our priests cannot help. Nothing helps." looked at the bundle in her arms. Through a gap in the cloth he could see scales, soft baby scales that should have glowed with light, but they were gray and dull. The creature inside was dying. "Why me?" asked. His voice came out as a whisper. "I am just a medic. I'm not even a doctor for children." "Our seers looked into the future," the Queen said. "They said a human would save my child. We brought your ship here. We tested your crew one by one." "Tested?" The Queen's eyes, dark and deep as empty space, fixed on his face. 17 humans have tried before you. They all failed." "Felt cold. What happened to them?" The Queen did not answer. She did not need to. "You are the last," she said. "If you fail, your entire crew dies. If you succeed, I will give you anything you desire." Looked at the crying infant. He looked at the massive guards standing around the chamber. He looked at the Queen, whose face held both terrible power and terrible grief. He was not a hero. He had never been a hero. He was just a medic who hummed old songs and held the hands of scared people. But he had to try. "Let me see the child," he said. The Queen's tendrils stopped moving. The guards shifted nervously. No one had ever asked to approach the royal heir before. Slowly, carefully, the Queen held out the bundle. Took it in his arms. The infant was lighter than he expected. Its cries were weaker now, as if it was running out of strength. Through the cloth he could feel how cold it was, too cold. He did not know what to do. He was not a scientist. He did not understand alien biology. He had no medicine, no tools, no knowledge that could help. But he had one thing. Without thinking, without planning, began to hum. It was the same song he had been humming in the medical bay. The same song his mother had sung to him 30 years ago. A simple lullaby about stars and sleep and safety. The chamber fell silent. The crying stopped. The infant in his arms opened its eyes. They were like tiny galaxies, filled with swirling stars. It looked up with something that might have been wonder. And then it grabbed his finger with a small, clawed hand and held on tight. The Queen rose from her throne. Her tendrils reached toward, trembling. "What did you do?" she whispered. Kept humming. He did not know what he had done. He did not know why it had worked. He only knew that the tiny creature in his arms had stopped crying, and for now, that was enough. The Queen moved closer. Her shadow fell over him like a mountain. "You will not leave this ship," she said. Her voice was soft now, almost gentle. "You will stay here with my child, with me." Looked up at her. His heart was beating fast, but he was not afraid anymore. Something had changed. Something important. "What happens now?" he asked. The Queen's alien face twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Now," she said, "everything changes." The first night was the longest of his life. The Queen had given him a room near the royal nursery. The walls were alive just like everything else on the ship. They pulsed with soft light that changed color based on the time of their alien day. Blue for morning, purple for afternoon, deep red for night. Could not sleep. Every few hours, a guard would come to his door and escort him to the nursery. The infant would be crying again and would hum until it stopped. Then he would return to his room and wait for the next summons. By the third day, he was exhausted. His throat was raw. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. But whenever he heard that thin, desperate cry through the walls, he forced himself to stand and walk. The doctors watched him constantly. They pointed strange devices at him while he hummed. They recorded the sounds he made. They whispered to each other in clicks and whistles that his translator could not understand. "Your voice produces unusual frequencies," one of them told him on the fourth day. It was a tall, thin creature with scales that shifted from silver to gray. "We cannot replicate them with our machines." "Why not?" asked. "Human vocal cords are different from ours. You can produce sounds that no can make, sounds that seem to have a direct effect on our young." Did not fully understand, but he nodded anyway. He was too tired to ask more questions. Queen came to the nursery every night. She would sit in a chair made of crystal and watch tend to her child. Her face was always unreadable, but began to notice small things. The way her tendrils relaxed when the infant stopped crying. The way her hands gripped the arms of her chair when he first entered the room. She was afraid, he realized. Afraid for her child. Afraid of losing the only thing that mattered to her. Understood that fear. He had felt it himself long ago when his mother was sick and he could do nothing to help her. On the 5th night, the infant's condition grew worse. Was in his room, trying to eat some of the strange food they had brought him, when he heard the alarm. It was not like the alarms on his ship. It was a low, deep sound that vibrated through the walls like a heartbeat going wrong. He ran to the nursery without waiting for a guard. The infant was convulsing. Its tiny body shook in the cradle, and the light from its scales flickered like a dying flame. Doctors surrounded it, clicking frantically at each other. Queen stood frozen by the door, her face twisted with terror. "Move," shouted. The doctors turned to look at him. For a moment, no one moved. Then the Queen spoke a single word in her own language, and the doctors stepped aside. Reached into the cradle and lifted the infant. It was even colder than before. The shaking grew worse in his arms. He could feel its 3 tiny hearts beating out of rhythm, struggling to keep going. He began to hum. But this time it was not enough. The infant kept shaking. Its cries became screams. The light in its scales grew dimmer and dimmer. Closed his eyes. He thought of his mother. He thought of the nights she had held him when he was sick, when he was scared, when he was alone. He thought of the songs she had sung to him over and over until he finally fell asleep. And then he did something he had not done in years. He sang the words. His voice was rough and tired. He did not remember all the lyrics, but he sang what he could, filling in the gaps with humming, letting the melody carry him forward. The song was about a child sleeping under the stars. It was about a mother watching over her baby through the long night. It was about safety and warmth and love that never ends. Slowly the infant stopped shaking. Its hearts began to beat together again. 1, 2, 3, all in perfect rhythm. The light returned to its scales, soft at first, then brighter, pink and gold and silver swirling together like sunrise over the ocean. The infant opened its eyes and looked at. Then it made a sound he had never heard before, a soft, musical sound, like tiny bells ringing in a gentle wind. It was laughing. Laughed too, he could not help it. Tears ran down his face, and he did not try to stop them. Behind him, Queen made a sound that might have been a sob. When turned, he saw that she had fallen to her knees. Her tendrils hung limp around her shoulders. Her eyes, usually so cold and distant, were wet with tears. "You saved her," she whispered. "You saved my daughter." Looked down at the infant in his arms, a daughter he had not known. "What is her name?" he asked. The Queen rose slowly to her feet. She walked across the room until she stood before him. Up close, she was even more terrifying, and even more beautiful. Could see the patterns in her skin, the way her scales caught the light, the depth of emotion in her alien eyes. "Her name is First Light of New Dawn," the Queen said. "It is the name given to the heir of our empire, the child who will one day rule 1100 worlds." Looked at the baby. She had stopped laughing and was now chewing on his finger with toothless gums. She did not look like the ruler of anything. She just looked like a baby. "That is a very long name," he said. The Queen tilted her head. "What would you call her?" Thought about it. In Korean, there was a word for star, a simple, beautiful word that his mother had used when she pointed at the night sky. He said, "It means star." The Queen repeated. The word sounded strange in her alien voice, but also right somehow. "I like it." She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool and smooth against his skin. He should have been afraid. He should have pulled away, but he did not. "You will stay here," she said again. It was not a question. My crew said, "You promised to release them if I saved your child." "They will be released. I keep my promises." The Queen's hand dropped from his face. "But you must remain, needs you. She cannot survive without your songs." Looked at the infant in his arms. She had fallen asleep, her tiny hand still wrapped around his finger. She was warm now, healthy, alive. He thought about his crew. He thought about home. He thought about all the things he would never see again. Then he thought about this small, helpless creature who would die without him. "I will stay," he said. The Queen nodded. For a moment something passed across her face. Relief, gratitude, maybe something else. Something could not name. "You will not be a prisoner," she said. "You will be honored above all others in my empire. You will want for nothing." "I do not want to be honored," said quietly. "I just want to help." The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. It was a strange smile, full of teeth that were too sharp on a face that was too alien, but somehow it made feel warm. "Then help," she said. "Help me raise my daughter. Help me understand your strange, singing species. Help me become something better." Did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He just held the sleeping infant and watched as the Queen walked back to her crystal chair. Outside the nursery, the stars burned in the darkness of space, billions of them, endless and eternal. And somewhere among them, this old life grew smaller and smaller, until it was just another point of light in the vast, unknowable universe. 1 month passed on the ship. Learned many things during that time. He learned that they called their empire the Void Dominion. He learned that they had conquered 1,100 worlds over 10,000 years. He learned that they were feared across the galaxy, and that other species spoke their name in whispers. He also learned that Queen was lonely. She did not say this out loud. She did not need to. Could see it in the way she sat alone in the great hall after her advisors left. He could see it in the way she watched him sing too, her eyes hungry for something she could not name. He could see it in the way she asked him questions about humans, about Earth, about the simple, ordinary life he had lived before. "Tell me about your mother," she said one night. They were in the nursery, was sleeping peacefully, her scales glowing with soft light. Sat in a chair beside the cradle, and the Queen sat across from him, her massive form somehow making the large room feel small. "She was kind," said. "She worked in a hospital like me. She always said that healing people was the most important job in the world." "And your father?" "I never knew him. He left when I was young." The Queen's tendrils stirred slightly. In our culture, fathers are not important. The mother raises the child alone. The father returns to his duties after mating. That sounds lonely. It is the way things have always been. Looked at the sleeping infant. "And's father, where is he?" The Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than had ever heard it. "He died," she said, "before she was born. There was a war with a species called they sent assassins to kill me. He protected me with his body. He saved my life but lost his own." "I am sorry." "Do not be. He died with honor. His name will be remembered for 1,000 generations." But heard what she did not say. He heard the grief beneath her words, the weight of carrying her pain alone. "My mother died too," he said quietly, "when I was 15. She got sick and the doctors could not save her. I was with her at the end. I held her hand and sang to her until she was gone." The Queen's eyes fixed on him with sudden intensity. "You sang to her as she died?" "Yes, it was all I could do. I could not save her body, but I could give her peace." Something changed in the Queen's face. Something could not read. Her tendrils reached toward him, hovering in the air between them. "You are a strange creature," she said. "Your species is weak. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. You cannot survive in the void of space. You cannot breathe underwater. You break easily and heal slowly. And yet, And yet you can do something that no other species can do. You can create sounds that heal the spirit. You can offer comfort in the darkness. You can make the dying feel at peace. Smiled sadly. We had to learn. Humans have always been prey. We were hunted by bigger, stronger creatures for thousands of years. We survived by staying together, by protecting each other, by singing songs around the fire to keep the fear away. Your weakness became your strength. I suppose it did. The queen rose from her chair. She moved across the room and stood beside the cradle, looking down at her sleeping daughter. In the soft light, she looked almost gentle, almost human. I have ruled the Void Dominion for 300 years, she said. I have destroyed species that threatened me. I have enslaved species that served me. I have conquered worlds and built an empire that stretches across the stars. She turned to look at. Her eyes were like black holes pulling him in. But I have never felt what I feel when you sing. His heart beat faster. What do you feel? Safe, she whispered. For the first time in 300 years, I feel safe. She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin, but the touch was gentle, did not pull away. I want you to sing for me, she said, not for me. Stood slowly. He was so small compared to her. His head barely reached her chest, but somehow in that moment they felt equal. He began to sing. It was a different song this time. Not a lullaby, but something older, something deeper. A song about loss and love and the hope that comes after grief. His mother had sung it at funerals. His grandmother had sung it during the war. It had been passed down through generations of his family, carrying the weight of centuries. The queen closed her eyes. Her tendrils went still. Her massive body seemed to relax, the tension flowing out of her like water from a broken vessel. A single tear ran down her alien face. When the song ended, the chamber was silent. Could hear his own heartbeat. He could hear breathing softly in her cradle. He could hear the distant hum of the ship's living walls. The queen opened her eyes. They were different now, softer, more human somehow. I understand now, she said. Why my seers said a human would save my daughter. It was not about medicine. It was not about science. It was about this. She placed her hand over her heart, or where assumed her heart was. You save us with your songs, she said. You heal wounds that no doctor can see. You give comfort that no technology can provide. It is just what humans do, said. It is nothing special. No, the queen shook her head. It is the most special thing in the universe, and you do not even know it. She stepped back from him. Her formal manner returned, but something had changed between them. Could feel it like a warmth in the air. I have made a decision, she said. You will no longer be just a caretaker for my daughter. You will be my consort. Blinked, you're what? My equal, my partner. The only person in the empire who stands beside me, not below me. But I am just a medic. I am nobody. The queen smiled. It was still strange, still alien, but it made his heart skip. You are the man who saved my daughter with a song, she said. You are the man who made me feel safe for the first time in 300 years. You are not nobody, Park. You are everything. She turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. Get some rest, she said. Tomorrow your new life begins. Then she was gone, leaving alone in the nursery with a sleeping infant and a future he could not have imagined. He looked down at. She stirred in her sleep, making soft sounds that were almost like humming. Your mother is very intense, he whispered to her. Cooed and grabbed at the air with her tiny hands. Laughed quietly. Then he sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. For the first time since his abduction, he did not feel afraid. He felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 months had passed since became the royal consort. His life had changed in ways he still could not believe. He had his own chambers now, carved from the living walls of the palace ship. The rooms were vast, filled with furniture that had been specially made for a human body. There were windows that looked out into space, showing him stars he had never seen before. There were servants who answered his every call, though he rarely called them. But the most important thing had not changed. Every night, he still went to the nursery to sing to sleep, and every night Queen was there waiting for him. The infant had grown quickly. She was no longer the fragile dying creature had first held in his arms. Her scales now glowed with brilliant colors, pink and gold and silver. Her 3 hearts beat strong and steady. She had learned to crawl, and she spent her days exploring the nursery on unsteady hands and knees, making clicking sounds that sounded almost like laughter. She had also learned to hum. It was not perfect. Her alien throat could not produce the same sounds as a human voice, but she tried, mimicking the melodies sang to her, filling the nursery with her own strange, beautiful music. "She learns from you," Queen said one evening, watching as hummed along to lullaby. "She copies everything you do." "Children learn by copying," replied. "It is how humans teach their young. We show them and they follow." "We do not do this. Children are raised by teachers and machines. The mother is too busy ruling to spend time with her offspring." Looked at the Queen. In the months since he had become her consort, he had learned to read her alien expressions. He could see the sadness in her eyes now, the regret. "You did not spend time with your other children." "I have had 7 offspring before. All of them were taken from me at birth and raised in the traditional way. I saw them only at formal ceremonies when they were presented to the court." "That is sad." "It is duty." The Queen's voice was flat. A queen does not have the luxury of being a mother. Said nothing. He continued singing to until she fell asleep in his arms. Then he placed her gently in the cradle and covered her with a blanket made of soft, woven light. "You think I am cruel," the Queen said. "I think you are lonely." She turned to look at him. Her tendrils stirred, reaching toward him and then pulling back. "I have advisors," she said. "I have servants. I have an entire empire at my command. How can I be lonely?" "Because none of them see you. They see the Queen. They see the ruler. They do not see the woman who cries when her daughter is sick. They do not see the mother who watches me sing every night because she wishes she could do it herself." The Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "How do you see so much?" "Because I was lonely too," said simply. "After my mother died, I was alone. I had no family, no friends. I joined the military because I did not know what else to do. I spent years helping other people because it was easier than facing my own pain." He looked at her, meeting her alien eyes without fear. "You and I are not so different." It was the first time he had used her name without her title. He expected her to be angry. Instead, she smiled. A real smile, not the strange, sharp expression she usually wore. "No," she said, "perhaps we are not." She moved closer to him. She was so large that her shadow covered him completely, but did not feel small. He felt protected. "I have been thinking," she said, "about what you told me, about how humans survived by staying together, by protecting each other." "Yes. The Empire has ruled through fear for 10,000 years. We conquered species that were weaker than us. We destroyed species that threatened us. We built the largest empire in the galaxy, and we did it alone." She paused, her tendrils moving slowly around her shoulders. "But we are dying, our birth rates are falling, our children are sick. Our scientists cannot find a cure. In 1,000 years there may be no left." Felt a chill run through him. His illness, it was not unique. "No, it affects all our young now. Something is wrong with our species, and we do not know how to fix it." "But survived because of the singing." "Yes." The Queen's eyes burned with sudden intensity. "You saved her. Your songs did what our medicine could not, and I believe you can save the others too." His heart beat faster. "The other children, you want me to sing to all of them?" "I want more than that." The Queen reached out and took his hands in hers. Her grip was gentle, careful not to hurt his fragile human body. "I want to change everything. I want to bring more humans to the Empire, not as prisoners but as partners. I want to learn from your species. I want to teach my people how to care for each other the way you care for." It was madness. It was impossible. An empire built on conquest and fear, transforming into something new because of lullabies and love. But looking into Queen's eyes, saw something he had not expected to see. "Hope. It will not be easy," he said. "Your people will resist. They have been conquerors for 10,000 years. They will not become caretakers overnight." "I know, but I am the Queen. My word is law." "Laws can change. People are harder." "Then we will change them together." She squeezed his hands. "You and I, we will show them a different way." Looked at her. He thought about his crew, who had been released and sent back to human space. He thought about his old life, which now seemed like a distant dream. He thought about this strange, beautiful, terrifying queen who had somehow become the most important person in his universe. "Why me?" he asked. "There are billions of humans. Why did your seers choose me?" The queen's smile softened. "I do not know. Perhaps because you are kind. Perhaps because you are brave. Perhaps because you are the only human who ever looked at me and saw something other than a monster." She released his hands and stepped back. "Or perhaps it was simply fate, the universe putting us together because we needed each other." Thought about that. He thought about all the choices that had led him here, joining the military, being assigned to the horizon's edge, being in the medical bay at the exact moment they attacked. Maybe it was fate, maybe it was chance, maybe it did not matter. He was here now, and he had a choice to make. "I will help you," he said. "I will teach your people. I will sing for your children. I will stand beside you and show them that there is another way." The queen's eyes glowed with something that might have been tears. "Thank you," she whispered. She turned and walked toward the door, but before she left, she paused and looked back at him. "There is a ceremony tomorrow," she said. "The formal announcement of your status as consort. You will stand before the entire empire and be named as my equal." "That sounds terrifying." "It will be," she smiled again. "But you will not be alone. I will be right beside you." Then she was gone, leaving alone in the nursery with a sleeping infant and a future that was bigger than he had ever imagined. He looked down at, she was growing so fast. Soon she would be walking. Soon she would be talking. Soon she would be the ruler of 1,100 worlds. But for now, she was just a baby who needed songs to help her sleep. Began to hum softly. The melody filled the nursery, mixing with the soft glow of the living walls. Tomorrow everything would change, but tonight he was just a man singing to a child. And somehow, that felt like the most important thing in the universe. 5 years had passed since the ceremony that named Park as the royal consort of the Empire. In that time, the galaxy had changed. It began slowly, as all great changes do. Queen released the prisoners from the conquest worlds. She ended the slave trade that had fueled the Empire's economy for thousands of years. She invited representatives from conquered species to speak in the Great Hall, and she listened to their grievances with patience that surprised even her own advisors. But the biggest change came with the humans. They arrived in small groups at first. Scientists and doctors who were curious about the strange illness affecting children, musicians who wanted to study the healing power of human song, teachers who believed they could help bridge the gap between species. Greeted each of them personally. He showed them the palace. He introduced them to the who would be their partners. He taught them the customs and traditions of an alien culture that was older than human civilization itself. And every night he still sang to sleep. She was 5 years old now, though she looked much older by human standards. Children grew quickly. She could walk and run and climb. She could speak in both clicks and human words. She could even sing, though her alien throat made the melodies sound different from anything on Earth. She was also the most beloved figure in the empire. The people had watched her grow. They had seen her play in the gardens of the palace ship. They had heard her laughter echoing through the corridors. They had witnessed her kindness, the way she stopped to help a servant who had dropped something, the way she shared her food with the palace animals, the way she hugged visitors without fear or judgment. She was not like the previous heirs. She was not cold or distant or formal. She was warm and curious and full of life. And everyone knew it was because of the human who had raised her. On the anniversary of 5th year as consort, Queen called a gathering of the entire court. Thousands have filled the great hall. Representatives from 100 worlds stood in the galleries. The holographic screens that carried the broadcast reached every corner of the empire. Stood beside the queen, wearing robes of silver and gold that had been made especially for him. He still felt strange in formal clothes. He still felt like the simple medic who had hummed lullabies in the medical bay of a human ship. But when he looked out at the crowd, he saw something that made his heart swell with pride. Humans and standing together, talking together, laughing together. 5 years ago, this would have been impossible. 5 years ago, humans were prey and were predators. Now they were partners. Queen raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. 5 years ago, she began, her voice carrying through the chamber like thunder, I stood before you and announced a change. I told you that a human had saved my daughter. I told you that he would stand beside me as my consort. Many of you were angry. Many of you were afraid. You did not understand why I would elevate a weak, soft creature to such a high position. She paused, letting her words sink in. Now you understand. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Saw nodding. He saw humans smiling. He saw species that had once been enemies standing side by side. The Void Dominion was built on conquest, the Queen continued. We ruled through fear. We measured our strength by how many worlds we had taken, how many species we had crushed. But strength is not only in armies and weapons. Strength is also in kindness, in compassion, in the ability to heal wounds that no medicine can touch. She turned to look at. Her eyes, once so cold and distant, were now warm with affection. This human taught me that. He did not fight us with weapons. He did not resist us with force. He simply sang, and in doing so, he changed everything. She reached out and took his hand. The crowd gasped. A queen touching her consort in public was rare. It was intimate. It was a statement. I have made a decision, Queen said. From this day forward, the Void Dominion will no longer conquer. We will no longer enslave. We will no longer rule through fear. The gasps grew louder. Advisors exchanged worried glances, but the Queen continued, her voice steady and strong. We will build a new empire, an empire based on partnership and mutual respect, an empire where all species are welcome, where all voices are heard, where strength comes not from domination but from connection. She raised her free hand toward the galleries, where the representatives of 100 worlds stood watching. We will learn from each other. We will heal each other. We will grow together into something greater than any of us could be alone. The hall was silent, could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel Queen's hand trembling slightly in his. Then from somewhere in the crowd, a single voice began to hum. It was a human voice, one of the doctors who had come to study children. She hummed a melody that recognized, an old Korean lullaby that he had taught her during her first week in the palace. Another voice joined, then another, then another. Began to hum too, their alien voices mixing with the human ones. The sound spread through the hall like a wave, growing stronger and stronger, until the entire chamber vibrated with music. Felt tears running down his face. He did not try to stop them. Queen looked at him, and he saw that she was crying too. Look what you have done, she whispered. Look what you have created. We created it together, replied. She smiled. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the hall. She kissed him. It was not a human kiss. Her mouth was different, her lips were different, everything about her was different, but understood what it meant. It was a promise. It was a commitment. It was love expressed in the only way she knew how. The humming grew louder. The crowd began to cheer. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years celebrated together, united by a simple melody and the hope of a better future. Later that night, after the ceremony had ended and the guests had departed, sat in the nursery with. She was too old for lullabies now, but she still liked to hear him sing before she slept. "Father," she said, using the human word he had taught her, "will the empire really change?" "It already has," replied. "Look around you. Look at all the humans and working together. Look at how much has changed in just 5 years. But some people are still afraid. Some people still want the old way. Change is always scary, but that does not mean it is wrong." Was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at him with her galaxy eyes, so much like her mother's but also different, softer, warmer. "Will you teach me more songs?" she asked, "so I can help people feel less afraid?" Smiled. He pulled her close and held her the way he had held her when she was a tiny, dying infant in a cradle of light. "I will teach you every song I know," he said, "and when I run out of songs, we will make new ones together." Smiled and closed her eyes. Began to sing, a new song, one he had composed just for her. A song about a star that was born in darkness but learned to shine so bright that it lit up the entire universe. Outside the nursery window, the stars burned eternal. The empire stretched across 1,100 worlds, and somewhere on a distant planet called Earth, humans were learning that they were no longer alone. They had a place among the stars now. They had a purpose. They had proven that even the smallest, weakest creatures could change the fate of the galaxy. Not with weapons, not with war, but with songs, with kindness, with love. And that, thought as he sang his daughter to sleep, was the most human thing of all.